to the Construction Big Breakfast, where we give you a hearty serving of insider tips and business strategies to help fuel your day so you can thrive in the construction industry. Now, here's your host.
Thanks for tuning in. I'm your host, Aidan Baun, and welcome to the Construction Big Breakfast. Today, we're going to be diving into Northern Ireland's largest privately owned architecture firm who began life in London, and how it went on to win International Practice of the Year, and how they've now put roots down in Manchester. So joining me for today's podcast is our special guest, Jim Mulholland. Morning, Jim. How are we doing?
Good morning, Aidan. Good morning. I'm doing good.
Good.
Thanks for having me on.
No problem at all. Would you like to give our listeners a little introduction to yourself?
Okay, yeah, I'll do a little bit about me and then maybe a brief overview of Todd. So, I'm an architect. I've worked my career in Northern Ireland since finishing part 2 at Queen's in Belfast. I had a part 1 in London, but as I say, my career's been spent and somewhat dedicated to Belfast in Northern Ireland. I started off in another local practice called Kennedy Fitzgerald Associates, which would be well known in Northern Ireland. The two founding partners, Joe Fitzgerald and Jim Kennedy, being from Scotland and having worked for Gillespie, Kidd and Coy, they brought a certain design flair to Northern Ireland. Yeah. So my early career was based around mainly actually leisure, sports and leisure, and council projects of that nature. Grove Leisure Centre in Belfast, which was also a combined health and wellbeing building. So it had a leisure centre, had a library, and had a health centre. Was the first project I cut my teeth on, and then just as I finished up with Kennedy Fitzgerald, I I led the design and delivery of Newry Leisure Centre, which was a project I'm very proud of actually. Joined Todd's then in 2015 as an associate. And a few years later, I've now become one of the shareholding directors of the practice, and it's been a great few years with Todd's. Todd's have an interesting story. They were founded in 1976 by a gentleman called Barry Todd, who is a bit of a local architectural legend here in Belfast. Barry started off in London originally. And actually, coincidentally, having worked with Kennedy Fitzgerald as a junior architect and then leaving there, he set up himself in his practice over in London during a recession, and did quite well. Then he moved the practice back to Belfast and started to build it and grow it, but always kept that link with London. Yeah. The practice then. There's a gentleman called Peter Minnis joined in 1994, I think, and around the same time, another gentleman called Paul Crowe joined the practice. So Paul and Peter, along with another gentleman, now sadly not with us, Tim Geary, and a chap called Paul Murphy, who still practices in London, bought the practice of Barry in 2000. So Peter, Paul, Tim, and Paul took the practice on. Then from there, Paul Murphy then split from the practice at a certain point there. And he still has his practice in London and it's going well. And then Tim Geary retired. So since then, Peter and Paul, up until myself and 2 others, Dara Coleman and Andrew Murray, joined the practice. Peter and Paul had been growing and leading the practice and taking it from probably around 15-20 people to where we are now, which is just over 80 people. Wow. We have we have the Belfast studio, which probably most of the team is based, with about 50 of us here in Belfast. Then we have the London studio, which has always been there. We have the Dublin studio, which has been going for about 15, 16, maybe 17 of those years that Peter and Paul have been taking the practice on. And then we opened last year. We opened the studio in Manchester in the middle of the lockdown, which might seem a curious decision, but we had some clients in the in the north of England, and we had some projects on the go, and then we actually a chap I knew from university and one of the other associates here knew very well. Got in touch with us, Seamus Lennon, and we just thought this could be a really good idea for us all. So yeah, Seamus is the principal there in Manchester. It's been going for a year, and it's going well for us.
And whereabouts are you in Manchester? Where's the office?
Serviced office at the moment.
Okay, cool.
Bang in the centre, but they have a few other satellites, so we can Seamus can kind of move around. We're actually now at a stage where we're maybe thinking of taking a tenancy or taking a lease. We've taken on 2 people now in Manchester to join Seamus, so we're just slowly building.
Yeah. I mean, there's enough work going in Manchester, that's for sure. It's
absolutely.
I left Manchester I was there from 2010 to 2016, and when I go back there now, I don't recognise the place. It's just an entirely different city.
Yeah, well, I was there before even starting my architecture studies at college. I was there for about a year, and it's so what was that, 20 years ago? Maybe more actually. It's frightening. Just over 20 years ago. Yeah, and going back now, it's just transformed city.
Yeah. Now, Jim, we did miss a very important question with it being the construction big breakfast. What did you have for breakfast?
Oh, for breakfast, I am a creature of habit. I had my overnight oats again.
Overnight.
Yeah. I just it's handy. So I'm a
very good.
Overnight oats with oaty drink, whatever that is. Is it? I'm not sure if it's a milk, if it's a drink, or what it is. But
Oatly, is it?
Oatly, that's the one.
Oatly,
yeah. And some chia seeds, which are great, and a bit of fruit. Yeah, that's
a healthy man.
Habitual breakfast to set me up for the day.
Yeah, well, I was pretty similar, to be fair. I was just fresh off the hob, but it was Oatly milk as well. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. So, look, tell me a little bit about working in Northern Ireland. We've got listeners both sides of the Irish Sea. It's a unique place. How is it working in and around?
Yeah, well, my career's been interested in Northern Ireland. The first probably 8-9 years of it was almost entirely in the public sector, and I suppose steady is the way to describe that. And Northern Ireland, not dissimilar to some parts of the UK, relies heavily. The economy relies fairly heavily on the public sector. In terms of employment, the amount of people employed in the public sector, and then those in the private sector, a lot of the contracts come via the public sector, be they the health trusts, the councils procuring buildings, or through an organisation here called CPD, the Central Procurement Directorate, who runs a lot of the public procurement. So that was a good finding. I mean, this was learning how to communicate with those multi-headed clients and multi-headed user groups, and then delivering projects through that mechanism. And then since moving to Todd's we've a balance, a really good balance of public and private work. So I've carried that on. I've carried some of the public work on through education and some other council projects, and we've a large health portfolio here. Health is actually one of our main, sectors that we engage in. What's really unique about that in Northern Ireland is the quality of the work. And I have to mention John Cole in that. So there's a gentleman called John Cole, who was an architect by trade, but led the Health Trust in Northern Ireland for a number of years. He's now doing other things, such as he's involved. I think he was involved in the Grenfell inquiry. He was also involved in the quality of design and construction. Led that inquiry in Scotland after some of the problems with PFI schools there. So he developed that whole report. But John Cole really set a design quality agenda for health buildings in Northern Ireland, and the result of that was some buildings I was luckily involved with, like the Grove Health and Wellbeing in North Belfast, and my former practice also did a building called the Baun Bridge Primary Care Centre. It was an excellent building. Todd's he produced a number of primary care centres. There's Shankle here. I think there was 5 or 6 here in Belfast actually. I wasn't with the practice at the time, but really high quality architecture. And then leading on to even one of our recent major buildings that we finished was the Oma Hospital. And again, not often you see hospitals in the awards for architectural quality, but again, that's the legacy of what John Cole set up there, and a really innovative means to procure design teams and deliver buildings.
Yeah.
So that's really great part of working in Northern Ireland. I suppose the other side's in the private sector. We're a growing economy that way. We're obviously since '96. We're obviously coming out of a period of conflict and into a period of post-conflict or conflict by other means, as some people would describe it. We're mainly verbal these days, rather than thankfully, rather than active. And so, Belfast and other cities and towns have been trying to regenerate, address some of the built environment issues that evolved because of that dark period. And again, just the confidence grows year on year in Belfast and the other cities in terms of inward investment coming in and local entrepreneurs, developers investing in the city and developing buildings. So we're really active at the moment at design stage with a number of major schemes in Belfast. We've won just across from the office here. I should explain our office is Titanic Quarter. We're in the old drawing offices building where the actual place where I'm sitting is where the billing team used to work and price up all the things. And then just to my left, which is now a hotel, is the old drawing offices where the draftsmen and women would have drawn up plans and designs for the ships. And then just behind me is the Titanic Visitor Centre, which we actually completed. Todd's completed a number of years ago. And then just beside us then is we're developing up a major resi development for about 800 new homes here in Titanic Quarter. I've just worked on a residential scheme in the outskirts of the city centre for 300 odd units and homes there. There's student residential projects ongoing. There's multiple office schemes in planning and just about to come out. So there's an awful lot happening and an awful lot of development activity in Belfast.
Yeah. And it sounds like you're obviously a partner and director and senior within the team, but you're still very much involved in these projects, getting into the guts of them.
Yeah, I think that's core to how we operate now. I say there's 8 directors here. There's 5 owners. We're all local to Belfast, Northern Ireland, and it's part of the MO. It's part of our USP, as people describe it as. We all we're very accessible. We're not aloof as directors. We get involved in the design, in the detail of projects. We'll be involved in even some of the weekly meetings on some projects, depending on what is going on and what's happening on those. But we're trying to run a business as well. So it can be a little bit frantic. We do a bit of everything from even yesterday I was ordering flowers because we've a client coming in this morning, down to and then making sure the plates were cleared out of the room from yesterday's meeting, so it didn't smell of the lunch we had yesterday.
You're a humble man, Jim.
Yeah. Well, I'll try to be right through to like I'm developing at the moment, our strategy to get the business to net zero.
Yeah.
So and then my co-directors Peter and Andrew, they lead all the marketing and that side of the business. Then Paul deals a lot with things like investors and people, and he was really it's not a fabulous job. Got us to gold standard there last year. I think.
Wow.
I think again it's a first for an architectural practice in Northern Ireland to get to that stage.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we all do a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
It makes for exciting, if not busy, days. And you never quite know what you're going to do. Yeah, well, let me rephrase that. I always have lots of plans of what I'm
Whether
going
you
to do
get to
in
it,
any
yeah.
particular day, and I'm a real I have my kind of long list which I put to one side, and then I
Yeah.
try and do at the end of each day I try and do a sort of 4 or 5 bullet point. Right, this is what I'm going to achieve tomorrow, and yeah, that can sometimes just go out the window very quickly.
And how's the net zero approach coming along? It must be difficult, to say the least.
Well, I suppose truth be told, we are early in that
Yeah.
story, and we're early in
Yeah.
that process. Again, these things, whilst as architects, we've always been very passionate about sustainable design and innovative design to maximize, the energy efficiency and the performance of our buildings, and we've always taken a fairly low, just a systematic low tech approach to that of site and fabric first, and then introducing some of the technologies to make buildings running efficiency more better. But as a business, we've never really addressed it ourselves. So we're at the start of that story. We're currently going through the process of finding out where we are now. What is our carbon footprint of a business, and then we will be developing. They'll obviously develop a strategy then to get us to net zero. Provisional target is 2030, but I would, as we're not a manufacturer, we're not exporting, so that's our provisional target. I would like to better that. Being a consultancy business, I think we can try and do better, and if we can get it to 25, 26, then ideal.
Yeah, and all these learnings will filter down into your projects as well, I imagine, as more innovative materials become available and systems and processes develop. Yeah.
Well, I mean, absolutely. I mean, there's for me anyway, as director, there's 2 sides of it to what we do. The first thing that I'm really looking at here is, and the first side of it is what the business's impact is and how we can do things better in terms of how we travel. The electricity we use, where we're buying that electricity from, et cetera, et cetera. But how we actually design and work then as architects, which is something we've been doing. Well, certainly I've been doing my entire career, and the architects here in Todd have been doing as well. We've actually had, in the office, we've had a team inventively named the Green Team for about 15 odd years, and they've been their remit is kind of just a roving editorial type remit to go and find out what are the new technologies, what are the strategies, design techniques, and then that is then fed across the rest of the practice through. We do kind of Friday forum events every month, and then we have more informal team get-togethers, and that knowledge is then kind of dissipated out through the practice in that way. We're sort of rebranding the team. I haven't quite come to a name of that, but it's had a relaunch there in the last year, and we sort of widened the remit, brought more people into it, and widened the remit. So just beyond looking at technologies and construction techniques through to we sort of snapshots about what as individuals we can do, even understanding what plastics can and can be recycled. We put out a wee infographic around the team to say actually in Northern Ireland, number 5 and number 6 on the little thing doesn't get recycled. It gets and it can contaminate the plastic, which does. So it's wee things like that, trying to just build everyone's awareness.
Yeah. Okay. And look, take us back to winning International Practice of the Year. There's a bit of a story there, I believe.
Well, I'll try and relay the story, and that's really a practice achievement. It was Peter Minnis, co-director, and who sort of led the submission and then did the actual interview. That was with the AJ as part of the AJ 100. So we're on that list. I think we've got up to 55 now. I remember the time I was a with KFA, and Todd's entered the list, and that was big news in Northern Ireland. You know, that was like, this is the first practice from Northern Ireland to make that list, and they came in at 99 or something, I think, the first year, which was, you know, maybe 10 years ago now, and has we've, you know, then continued to steadily climb. So in 2018, then Peter decided to enter us into the International Practice of the Year category, which we qualified for because of our work in Ireland. So that's which is great. So, you know, we went in with we doing health work, and we've primarily at that stage it was health and education work.
Yeah,
that qualified for that year. So, you know, Peter went and just presented to the AJ about, you know, how difficult it is to operate as a small pool in Northern Ireland, and we've had to look beyond Northern Ireland to sustain, you know, an office of our size, and to, you know, to find interesting and high quality projects. And those has led us to health and education in Ireland, and you know, ended up, quite to our astonishment, winning that year against the, you know, the likes of some very, you know, I think it was, you know, you're talking Make and Grimshaw or Foster's or whatever, the type of practices. So yeah, we still quite enjoy that one. But
it's a cracking achievement. Yeah, amazing achievement. And with the health sector, obviously the last 18 months has kind of, probably, if anything, brought it into the spotlight more than anything else in the world. Are you starting to see the health sector growing, or?
Oh, well, certainly in Northern Ireland, yeah, absolutely, and in Ireland as well. We're battling and doing our best to try and bring this, as I say, the portfolio we have for health work. We believe is as strong as any practice in the UK and Ireland, and that's largely due to the quality of how those buildings in Northern Ireland were procured, and we are working to bring that portfolio to, you know, England and Wales and Scotland, hopefully over time. But at the moment we're very active in Northern Ireland and Ireland. In Ireland we're on HSE framework, and we have, I think we had 4 or 5. Yeah, 5 projects down in Cork Kerry area, which are kind of all now finishing off, and the last 2 of those are still on site, but due to finish in the coming months. And they are CNU buildings, so community nursing units. And then we have, again through the HSE, we've a primary care centre and mental health centre in Naas, which is at planning design stage, and we've just won commission for a new primary care centre in Finglas, which is Dublin region, Dublin area. So health's really strong there. There's a massive, obviously, just with what's happened, massive focus on healthcare in Ireland, and likewise in Northern Ireland. So we actually were fortunate enough to work with the Trust and Dowd's contractors, and delivered the Nightingale Hospital here in Northern Ireland during the pandemic. A really incredible effort by everyone involved, and we just kind of threw the office at it, and Dowd's, well, everyone involved, from the, you know, engineers, ourselves, the contractor, and the client, just pulled together to make that happen. Great achievement for all involved, and fabulous. And then we've also been fortunate. There's again the innovative procurement in health in Northern Ireland continues, and they procure through frameworks. So there's trusts across the region, and they're currently in the process of renewing all their frameworks, and we've been fortunate enough to win 2 of those design competitions, and so we're on 2 of the frameworks so far, and we're waiting to hear about a 3rd one, which we submitted a few weeks ago. Now they're big competitions to do. They take a lot of commitment, but it's as I say, it's innovative in that it's entirely a design quality assessment in the procurement. The fee is set, so the pricing side of it is set for all teams. it is a big commitment, but the end goal or the end result is fabulous, because it's a 3-4 year framework. The projects all come off that, and it's focus on design quality, it's focus on construction quality, and you are making an impact in your community and the place where you live. So just everything about that ticks every box for us. So we put an awful lot of effort into those competitions, and again, very happily, it's amazing the guys that led those competitions and worked on those, and what they've achieved in winning too, and against the competition that we're against. I mean, it's local competition, but it's also national and international. So you've got the ACOMs, you've got white architecture, you've got all these huge global and really well known practices coming in competing against us, and we're just delighted to be able to hold our own and continue to win those.
It sounds like you're going to be busy.
Yeah, hopefully.
Well, Jim, look, I think that's a really good moment to wrap that up. The future is bright. You've got a lot coming in, maybe even a little bit more coming in. But thank you for joining me today. Where can our listeners get in touch with you if they'd like to learn a little bit more about Todd or you or?
I suppose we've made a big effort in recent times to improve our kind of web or virtual presence. So you'll find us on Instagram, you'll find us on Twitter, you'll find us on LinkedIn. We took on because we realized, again, something we tipped away at, didn't quite have time to focus on, so we actually hired a kind of a graphics guy, and with a view to improving all of that. You'll find us on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter. Our website is still live, but what I would say about the website, give us a month or two. It's quite old. It's still up there. It's quite old. We have been working solidly on. I'm not even going to tell you how long. For a long time. To relaunch or to build and populate our new website, which is definitely going to be launched this year. He says with confidence.
Maybe by the time this has gone out, it'll all be live and it's looking great. And our listeners can go and have a look at it there.
Absolutely.
Good. All right. Well, look, and thank you to all our listeners today. Thank you for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Construction Big Breakfast. We are having episodes every week, so click that subscribe button and turn on your notifications so that you don't miss anything. And whilst you're at it, if you would like to give us a 5-star, Jim and I would appreciate it a lot. And if you're interested in being a guest on the podcast or looking to collaborate in other ways, then come and find us at Invennt.com, and that's 2 N's. But until next time, thank you very much, and we'll see you later.
Thank you.
Good. Want to learn more about how Invennt can help your business maximize its bottom line? Head on over to www.inventt.com and get in touch with our team today. Thanks for joining us this week on the Construction Big Breakfast. Make sure to visit our website, www.inventt.com, where you can subscribe to the Construction Big Breakfast on all platforms so you'll never miss a show. While you're at it, if you found value in the show, we'd appreciate a positive rating. Or if you'd simply share it with a friend, that would help us out too. Be sure to tune in for our next episode.